Well, here we are, guys, back for another podcast as promised. We said last week we'd be back, and here we are.
Well, we didn't do one last week, so
we said 2 weeks ago we'd be back.
Let's just
Edit that out.
sweep that under the rug.
Under the rug there. So we missed last week.
Yeah, we missed last week.
Somebody wasn't here on Monday.
Yeah.
Where was I?
You were in Greensboro.
I had a strategic advisory council meeting in Greensboro.
You did.
Always some important meeting.
Yes,
It was
you are.
important. We got some good stuff done. Yes. But we won't. Our podcast audience probably is not interested.
I doubt
in
it.
It's not going to
They
affect
could be.
them.
I don't know.
Yeah, but we're not going into
We're not going to go into that.
Sorry, folks, we missed last week. I was all excited about keeping our word, and then we missed last week because somebody went out of town. Some unnamed person was gone.
Yeah. But we're back.
You guys. We are back.
We're back here.
We're back. Had a really good weekend. Saw a lot of hands going up. A lot of fine people here. I just loved a lot that I saw yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another good day, another good weekend all the way around. Lots of great things happening. Life change taking place. People saying yes to Jesus. People taking steps in their faith journey, discovering how to have joy in the midst of really tough and bad circumstances. So, yeah, great weekend.
God was really putting his finger on some people in terms of really I saw it happening, speaking to right where they were this week in a powerful way. It wasn't because of I figured out the sermon or anything like that, or it was just God was moving this weekend and just really met a lot of people right where they are and let them know that he was there. And I saw it happening while I preached even. I saw it happening, which was really fun, really cool.
Yeah. Love this passage in Philippians too. Probably my favorite of the ones we're going to go through in this chapter. Is it only this chapter, the whole series?
Well, that's yet to be determined.
Okay, well,
It's taking him a little bit longer to get through chapter 1 than maybe he anticipated.
Yeah.
I'm just telling y'all, Philippians has gone longer than I thought it would. It's there's so much that I read it. I read Philippians a lot over and over, and it's about joy, the sermon. That's what God's led us to. And every passage, I'm like, there's so much joy here. I can't skip this. There's so much joy. I've skipped the prayer that he prayed. I skipped that in chapter 1, and we're moving forward this week, and we'll see when this one ends. We'll see. I don't know exactly when this one's going to end. It's just I don't want to lock myself in.
But this section is great. It's one of my favorites in the whole book of Philippians. Just I feel like it's written every time I read this one. It's just like, man, I feel like that's written for today.
Yeah.
But it more shows you that the issues of yesterday and even many years ago, they tend to be human nature issues. So we keep having those issues of people maybe preaching the gospel for their own glory or trying to grow their fame, and I feel like you see so much. Not to just dive right into it, but I feel like you see so much of a lot of Christian social media dedicated to just like tearing those types of people down. And every time I see one of those people, I'm like, I wish they would just they would explain to me how they can base their whole presence around just ripping other Christians apart, and then read this passage. I don't know.
We tend to, I do anyway, I think a lot of Christians do, we tend to sterilize the New Testament church as if they were just perfect, filled with the Spirit and perfect, and they had it all together. They did not by any means have it all together. They were struggling with human nature, with leadership struggles, with politics type things going on. There were people trying to platform themselves and become greater influencers. They would not have used that term, obviously, but they were trying to become influencers within the Christian world. Paul dealt with it with the church at Corinth. Some are of Paul, some are of Apollos. It was following the celebrity leaders, And what Paul touches on in Philippians 1 is that while he was in prison, there were people trying to gain a platform by taking advantage of his imprisonment, and some actually wanted to kind of rub it in Paul's face, So those kind of things were going on, and we do have those who kind of make a living off tearing down other people. Now, I have no problem contending for truth, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I think some of things that come to light should come to light,
Sure.
Children being abused and all kind of things going on like that, and just unrepentant sin going on, that type of thing. Those types of things need to come out. But we can so easily get in the wrong spirit and just see ourselves as a watchdog over other people, you know.
Yeah.
But the fragmenting of the body of Christ just makes us weaker, you know. Leaders attacking leaders and all kinds of quarrels going on all the time. Paul just said, and we hit it yesterday, it doesn't matter. The fact that people are fighting against me doesn't matter. What's important to me, Paul says, in essence, in this passage, what's important to me is that the gospel is going forward.
Yeah.
He says that. That's the theme of this passage. He's reassuring the Christians at Philippi that I'm okay.
Yep.
He'd been in this situation about 2 years at this point, and they likely wondered, they heard Paul was in prison, and they wondered how he is. He's like, I'm okay. And actually what's happened here, the gospel is going forward. I'm having this opportunity to witness to all these Praetorian guards, 9,000 soldiers that I'm getting a chance to be chained to 4 hours a day. Other Christians are hearing my story, and they're more bold to speak the word and preach the gospel, you know. Then he says some of them are great, some of them have bad motives, but either way, doesn't matter to me. The gospel's going out, and in that I rejoice. That's so powerful to me.
You kind of look at the circumstances that Paul is in. They're bad enough, right? I mean, he's been in prison for his faith. He's chained to a Roman. I mean, all these things that you've well articulated in this week and last week about his circumstances. But then you throw on top of it that there are people that are supposed to be defending him and people that are supposed to be encouraging him, and they're the ones that are on the same team, right? But they're the ones that are kind of profiting off of the fact that he's been in prison, throwing it in his face, that kind of deal, and yet he still comes back with that line that, man, you did it was such a powerful moment of everybody just reciting, it doesn't matter, right? It blows my mind in that moment right there that he's still saying, hey, it doesn't matter. The mission is still moving forward. It doesn't matter what they do to me.
What happens to me is not the primary concern. What happens to the gospel moving forward was Paul's primary concern. A lot of living a joyful life is getting your heart right and keeping your heart clean. Bitterness can steal your joy so fast. And if you live in this old world, I know it's true being in ministry, and I bet it's true for our listeners being in whatever vocation that they have, you know. It is so easy when you rub shoulders with people in the world and deal with the public over and over. It's so easy. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get accused. You're going to get lied about. You're going to get misunderstood. That's just going to happen in our world. It's so easy in the middle of all that to get bitter and to carry offense around with you. And that's one of the biggest joy stealers in the world. Sometimes you just need to say, that doesn't matter.
Right.
That's their thing. I'm not taking that into my own spirit here. I'm gonna go on and rejoice with my life with Jesus.
You know, you've taught all of us so much. I mean, but one of the biggest lessons I think that I've learned from you is that principle right there. I can't tell you the number of times that we have been dealing with a situation here, and you've always circled it back around. It's like, hey, when we get done handling this situation, we want to walk this thing out to where our heart is clean, to where we're handling this thing with a pure heart, that we handle it right, that we want our hearts to be right when it's all said and done. And when I'm dealing with this situation, it's me and Danielle, and we're handling something or in personal lives or anything, your voice echoes into my head about, hey, when we get done handling this, we want to still have a pure heart.
That's so important. You just can't last. I got that from, it's been many, many years ago. I was sitting and talking with a friend who was in a very broken situation, and he was trying to figure out how he was going to navigate it all. And it was complex. There was a lot of relationships at stake and a lot of hurt, and it was a complex situation. And he said, I just need to know what to do, Andy. And I remember sitting with him in the desperation, and I just prayed in the moment. I said, God, give me a word from him. And that came to me as clearly from the Lord. And I said to him, I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do, but I do feel this is for you today. Whatever you do it and keep your heart clean in it. Make sure bitterness does not drive your decision. Make sure the need to win does not drive your decision. Right. Not every battle is worth fighting. You don't have to fight every battle. You can just walk on past some of them. If someone wants to pick a fight with you, you can just walk on.
Yeah.
Not every battle's worth fighting, and you just walk on and say, that doesn't matter. And I find Christians sometimes, they want to fight battles that don't need to be fought. You can really just go on.
Yeah.
You know? I find that people like, well, they did me wrong. They're going to do you wrong. go on and rejoice.
Yeah.
I got cheated. I got cheated out of a lot of money. Well, what are you going to do? Well, I'll take them to court.
Lose more money.
Spend money to get money. You might spend $2,000 to get $500 back. You know what I mean? And in the process, think of the energy you've poured into just trying to right a wrong. We all have a sense of justice.
Sure.
And there are things worth fighting over. You know what I mean? I found with money, people just can't walk by that. Well, I got cheated. Sometimes you just have to say, well, it's money. I learned my lesson. I got burned there, but I'm not going to go back there again. But I'm not going to spend the next 2 years of my life. And if you get involved in something like that, it's years. Yeah. It can be. And it's like, I'm not going to spend the next 2 years being embroiled in that. I'm just going to say, well, sorry that happened. It's bad. I'm going on with my life. I got better things to do than fight about some offense. So there's just times it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you got to ask yourself in those situations, like, how much money is worth me feeling this way for years of my life? And the answer is none.
How much stress are you going to put on your body? What's it going to cost you in legal fees? What's it going to cost you in time? Yep. What's it going to cost you in opportunities that you couldn't say yes to because you're embroiled in this? What's it going to cost you in medical bills? You have no idea what carrying stress will do to your stomach and do to your body. Yep. I mean, there's just such a cost to fighting battles that don't need to be fought.
And then you throw into the fact of you're delaying any kind of healing that needs to take place in your life because you still got this, this open thing that doesn't have any kind of closure to it.
You are.
And so,
There's a verse in there somewhere, I life journal on it, and I can't recall it, but Jesus is talking with two people. I feel like they were family. Don't hold me to this perfectly because I'm just trying to pull it out of my memory. But they were fighting with each other, and I think Jesus said something like, that's not my battle to fight. What's this got to do with me? Why should I step into this?
Right.
Podcast listeners can go look that up. If I remember, I will later. I life journal about it one day, and I just said, if Jesus can walk away from some battles, certainly I can too.
Right. I just think about it's a different context, but when Jesus talks about casting our sins to the sea of forgetfulness, sometimes, you need to take situations in your life and put it in the sea of forgetfulness. Like, forgive, deal with it in the moment.
God's forgetfulness.
Yeah, it's like
great
forgive in the moment. Yep. Like, deal with it, have the tough conversation right then, deal with it. Forgive
quickly.
Whatever needs to happen. Yep. Forgive quickly, and then forget about it. Move on.
If there are any pastors and ministers listening, it applies to whoever. I can tell you right now, longevity depends on this type of thing.
Right.
If you've got to fight every battle and set everybody straight and win every argument, you're not going to last in ministry because you simply don't have the energy to be able to minister and fight off all these things. There are times you just need to move on and forget it and lay it down. I'll have people come up to me sometimes and say, I'm really sorry about what I did years ago. I don't remember it. I'm like, I don't even remember that. And they'll look shocked because it's been in their head like crazy for years. And I'm not trying to be noble or anything. I just can't survive with that kind of weight on my life. I can't do what I do carrying things that have happened.
Well, I mean, the whole premise of this idea is how do we have joy, right? How do we have joy in the midst of, horrible, tough circumstances? And the thing about it is that we can make ourselves miserable by holding on to those things, by keeping the focus on us and how we've been wronged. And the reality is that all of us have been wronged. Now, the truth is that I'm sure that there's some people watching right now that have been, terribly wronged by an individual who did something to them that they never should have done, right? And I'm not trying to make light of that by any stretch of the imagination. But the longer that we continue to hold on to that and harbor that, the more difficult and the longer it's going to be before we can have joy.
Absolutely true. You need to deal with those hurts. And like you say, some are listening, and I talk to people far too often that have been abused and just horrible things happen to them. And none of this is to none of this is to lessen the impact of that over their lives. No. But it is true that you got to get up and face that and deal with it and go on past it and leave that with Jesus. Sometimes people have to face their legal consequences. You know, if you're a victim, there's nothing wrong at times with pursuing the legal route. But you just can't get stuck in that. And I run into people who got hurt, and they got stuck, and they just never got away from that, and it's hampered their joy for the rest of their lives. I think the key for us in all this is to examine our own hearts. Mm-hmm. When you talk about competition in the body of Christ, I think all of us have to look deep within our own hearts and root that out all the time. I know I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easy to view other churches and other Christians as competition. It's easy for me to see it that way. And we've had to continually just take steps of obedience that eliminated that, to say, no, we look for other people to grow, you know.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in a situation like this, I'll be very authentic. There have been times when I saw other people as competition and other churches as competition. And I'll confess this, and it's not easy to confess. I'm ashamed of this. There was a time that a church that I viewed, it's been a long while back, but a church I viewed as competition was having some trouble. And there was a little bit in my heart of like, oh, good.
Yeah.
I hate to confess that, but I'm just opening my heart. I didn't say it consciously,
sure,
but something in my heart felt a little satisfied that they were having trouble. And, you know, that drove me to my knees. It just popped up.
Yeah.
Sometimes things will just pop in your heart or in your brain, and you're like, I can't believe I even had that thought. And what God was doing is he's exposing to me that I'd made some things about me.
Yeah.
I was never a selfish ogre who wanted other people to fall.
Right.
But I just saw a bit of that in my heart, and I had to give that to Jesus, you know? And I think that's important for us to keep examining our heart and our motives to get that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you made it. That was one of the big points in the message was, is it about me or is it about the mission?
Yeah.
And that's something that Paul was so, I mean, like, that's why he wrote the Bible.
That was
it's so good at it was never about him. It was never about the ministry of Paul. It was always about the mission of Christ, regardless of his situation. I mean, we talk about it all the time, but he's literally in shackles writing the Bible, and it was he never once made it about his situation. And it was something we say that about, like when we talk about our volunteers, right? That's a saying that I've kind of remembered, is that it's like all of our volunteers are far more important as people than they are in their position.
Absolutely.
You know, right? Like the people I have, you know, running the camera or production, far more important how they're doing as people compared to how they do at their job, at their volunteer job, you know. But nobody is more important than the mission, right? No one person goes past our mission.
Well, the mission is people, you know what I mean?
Right.
But we don't put ourselves in the place of importance. I went yesterday, I'll turn it a little bit, but I went yesterday to our parking lot team is pretty incredible. They just really are, and they're well led, and they love each other, and they have this incredible team. If you come to Upward, you'll see these people out there just guiding you, golf carts, whole 9 yards. One of them, Bill, is moving away, and he's within about his last week or so here. And so just life change and seasons of life, and he's moving away about 7 hours. So
he's got a long drive to get here.
He's got to drive a long way to get to Upward now. But he's moving, I think, next week or so. And the parking lot team yesterday, it was probably his last day on parking, and they were in tears over Bill. Several of them, Shane was, and Shane will tell you he cries a drop of a hat anyway, and he was crying several times yesterday, and so was Bill. And they told me, they said, we got a surprise for Bill. We're going to go down to the corner building, and we have lunch for Bill. So they had a catered lunch brought in, and Bill didn't know it was for him.
Oh, that's fantastic.
They thought, I think they lied to him and told, God forgive them, but they lied to him. They did. They told him it was just about parking or something.
Just a meeting. Yep.
And so they got down there, and everybody had signed one of the parking team hats, and they got me to sign it, and everybody had signed it, and they presented it to him and told him, this lunch is for you. And he cried, and I just saw the tears in the room, and I thought, this is how church ought to be. You know what I mean? We've got a fairly large gathering on Sundays, and people say, well, big church, I don't want to be a part of that. It's so big. And we have people who leave because the church has grown so much, and that's up to people. But I thought, this is church. Within the big gathering, this parking lot team is a family that loves each other. And I told them, I shared this with my daughter recently. She and my son-in-law work at a great church in Tennessee, and their worship leader died. And went to heaven, and they were grieving so heavily. And I told my daughter, I said, you've been raised in church and you understand this. When you're in church, you love a lot of people. and you get close to a lot of people, and they become family to you. So several times a year, you're going to lose somebody. If it's a large church, several times a year, you're going to lose somebody that's really close.
Yep.
You know, I was riding here this morning thinking about Greg Mara and how I still miss him. And they're not just him, but others said, man, I just walk around, they're not here. And I'm like, man. But I told my daughter, I said, it's worth it to love people that deeply. Yeah. And I told the parking lot team yesterday, I said, it's worth it to, if y'all weren't crying, we'd be doing something wrong. Yeah. You know, so it's worth it. So, yeah. I took that turn. Yeah. I don't know what that had to do.
I don't know how to bring that one back. Yeah. That's good. I like it.
Philippians 1, really good stuff.
Yeah. No.
Yep. We'll continue this week, right? We're continuing this week in Philippians. I guess I should know that.
I would hope.
I would hope I had that figured out by now.
If you're here next Monday, we'll have another episode.
Coming. Yeah. I think I'm here next Monday.
There we go.
We'll
be
2 in a row.
So. Who knows?
Love y'all so much. Thanks for being part of the podcast. See you soon.